I just, want to keep the culture alive, bring the classics, and bring the community together.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Nostalgia on the Mic. I'm your host, T, and this is Season 2, Episode 2, Her Journey Through Vinyl. Here we honor the legends, celebrate the culture, and keep the sound alive for the next generation. Listen, as always, we have a great show lined up just for you. But first, make sure you like, comment, share, follow us on all platforms, and hit that notification button so you can be the first to catch our exclusive content when it drops. 3rd Coast Vinyl was founded in 2023 at Prairie View A&M University. Candace's passion for music aligned with a deeper understanding of cultural heritage. What started as a personal collection of vinyl records and tapes evolved into something much more meaningful when Candace became an African American studies minor at her HBCU that same year. The journey from collector to entrepreneur began with a simple question from a friend: where can I get a vinyl record? This question sparked an idea that would change everything. Rather than just pointing her friends to a store, Candace herself, why not sell music? Research revealed a reality that there were no Black-owned record stores left in the city. This discovery highlighted not just a business opportunity, but a cultural void that needed to be filled. Now let's get into it. All right, Candy, we on. How you doing?
Yes, I'm doing great. How are you? I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad we were able to get it. We had a rocky start, but I'm glad we were able to, pivot.
Right.
But like I tell my guests, I'm not going to hold you long. We're going to get right into it, okay?
Okay.
So when it comes to, culture and nostalgia and music, what or who influenced your earliest music taste?
So who influenced my early music taste? So it's actually funny because I was raised really religious. And so I was only allowed to listen to gospel music like growing up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was kind of in that bubble for a while. And then when I discovered R&B, I was just like, wow, like this is my bread and butter. Like I really loved it. And I got to kind of like see the relationship between R&B and gospel, also jazz. So I think that kind of shaped my music taste. Yeah.
When did you notice that, this is not just music, like, this is really something a part of me?
I would say probably in high school. That's when I kind of realized like, okay, this is more than just music for me. This is, something more, because I started playing music actually like on the morning announcements. Like I was kind of like a DJ, and I would like announce the songs coming up. And then after that, I would do like the newscast and stuff like that. So that's how it started before I went to college. Yeah.
So when you think of, the parts, because you listen like the 70s, 80s,
Mhm.
90s, early 2000s,
Mhm.
what part of old school music, in your opinion, do culture or younger generations often overlook or is misunderstood?
I think what the younger generation overlooks is probably um, all the different parts of the song. Like you have your chorus, your bridge, your prelude, all those different things that make up a song. I feel like nowadays we're kind of like lacking those points in songs, and it's kind of just, people aren't really even worried about that. They're more so worried about just like the beat and how it sounds. Like it's more like, we have like TikTok music, and then we have our like real music that me and you listen to. So
Because it's like even with like albums, they're not even. I've seen I think a one podcast where it's maybe like 2 minutes. Like songs used to be 3, 4 minutes, even like 5 minutes.
5, 6, yeah.
Another thing that I was thinking about, excuse me, is samples.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when like the younger generation hear a song is, oh, this is so and so. Someone actually came up to me. I think when Lola Brooke first dropped "You" with the "Gotta Get You Home,"
Oh
Get
yeah.
Me Home, and they said, yeah, Lola Brooke, that beat was like this, and I was like, that's not her beat, right? And it was like, it's not. And then I was like, well, you see, I had to break it down. I'm like,
Yeah.
Foxy sampled it, and then she
Yeah.
sampled it from you. So that definitely, I think that's something else that is overlooked, and I wish the younger generation would see it more. I know you said earlier, in school you did like news and music, or before you went to school, you graduated from an HBCU,
Yeah.
HBCU excellence.
Yeah, shout out PPU, Prairie View A&M University, the baddest HBCU in the
Yes,
land.
ma'am. So how did your experience and your identity, like your HBCU experience, shape your creative identity going to
Ooh.
HBCU?
In a lot of ways, I think my life would be totally different if I didn't go to an HBCU. I would say for starters, like just being around like a bunch of beautiful Black people, like that's already like helping you shape your identity for one.
Absolutely.
It's like this is everything, like, and it's a community, you know. We're all there to support each other, and also the culture, like the marching band, the majorettes, also the Greek life, things like that.
Absolutely.
And then I think the main portion was probably for me, our campus radio station, because I joined the campus radio station when I was a freshman.
Hmm.
That's really what catapulted me into the music scene. And I was just like, really like, wow, you know, I became a radio personality. I started DJing, I started doing all these things. And I was like, this is what I want to do. So,
We look at shows because I know for me, like, I enjoyed my HBCU experience, but when you see these videos online about, HBCU life in like the 80s and 90s, it's just like I had a, good time, but it just seemed like a different
yeah.
experience. Everyone looked just so happy
Mhm.
and, on campus. When you look at shows like A Different World and Living Single, how did it reflect HBCU life and music culture?
I think that HBCU life in the 80s and 90s was definitely different, like you said.
Mhm.
Times were totally different. People didn't have access to the internet like we do. So everything was more so based on the physical aspects, like cassette tapes, CDs, you know,
Mhm.
VHSs, all those things like that. Um, and I think also like through the TV shows, they would always wear like the apparel like that,
Mhm.
shouted out different HBCUs and things like that. And they also really supported the Black youth going to HBCUs. And there was always a message.
When you see, even I know like with All American, that was kind of like a HBCU.
Mhm.
I think, well, kind of like a HBCU. I think they was trying to
Yeah, they
frame
were
it,
trying. Keyword
trying
trying. Yeah.
trying to frame it. So like, do you think with today's, because I don't really watch too many, today's shows, but as far as creating shows like Living Single and A Different World today, like even like with the different storylines with Living Single, it showed like real life situations like in adulthood, I guess, or coming up in adulthood. Do you think that's something that they would be able to, I guess, relate to or show today?
I think definitely, I mean, there's always something to relate to. If there was to be a new HBCU show, I think they're coming out with the spinoff of A Different World, actually. But I know that people from this generation will be able to relate, um, because things change, but they stay the same, if that makes
Yeah,
sense, you know?
that's true.
So, yeah.
Like, how do you feel about like the spinoffs with the Fresh Prince spinoff? Be, authentic, but would say, leave the classics alone. Like, how
Yeah.
do you feel about, you think you're going to give it a chance?
No, that's how I feel. I'm like, leave the classics alone. Like, I feel like A Different World, that is so classic and gold.
Yeah.
And I feel like for people to go and say, oh, let's make a spinoff, I feel like it's more so about money. People want to make money.
Mhm.
They don't want
Rush the
to,
project.
if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's my
Right.
mom.
Right.
And I feel like the younger generation probably hasn't even seen A Different World, you know. Some of them
Hmm.
have because of their parents, but I feel like it's just not going to hit the same. Like, I don't know.
Alongside sitcoms, we think of music videos. To you, what stands out when it comes to storytelling, in the 80s and 90s music videos on like shows like Yo MTV Raps, Rap City,
Mhm.
Video Soul, things like that?
What stands out to me for storytelling is definitely just taking the listener on a journey, um,
Hmm.
and giving them something that they can relate to, like we talked about earlier. I feel like a lot of the 90s music videos were basically about love, about
Hmm.
friendships, about things that people could really relate to, and the emotions were there. Like you could really feel it. Especially in the music videos. I was just watching before we started the interview. I was watching BBD's uh,
Okay.
When I See You Smile Again,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it was just like you could feel the girl's emotion because he stood her up at the little date and then
Hmm.
to the end of the music video, and it's just a lot. But I feel like it was just a lot more emotion and yearning and things that you
Yeah.
could really feel. Yeah.
Even with to you in your opinion, how do music videos, shape, I know you said with love and emotion, the identity in our generation. 'Cause, moving into like the early 2000s, we had 106 in Park, like the
Mhm.
early 106 in Park.
Yeah, 106 in Park. I remember watching that when I was a kid, but it wasn't really my thing like that. Like my cousins was always having it on and stuff, and I remember like T-Pain was on there, Chris Brown and all that.
Hmm.
It wasn't really one of my favorite shows. I think I like Video Soul a lot.
Okay.
I like Video Soul. Also Soul Train. Like I'll watch reruns of Soul Train. Like I feel like it was more raw and like just more of a classic vibe, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah, I remember with 106 in Park because I remember Contagious. Contagious was number one for like 5, 6 weeks. But so moving into, vinyl, you mentioned you a DJ.
Yes.
So how did you first get involved? Because I also seen on your page you and Woman in Vinyl.
Yes, I am. So I'm actually a mentee for Women in Vinyl. I just
Nice.
recently got chosen for their mentorship program
Nice.
because
Congratulations.
thank you. I recently started DJing vinyl. Originally, I was into like DJing digitally with like controllers and things like that, but
Hmm.
I didn't really go too far with that. But I figured out like I think this is my lane. Like I'm already, involved in vinyl. I know where to start a song on a vinyl, where to drop the needle. So I might as well DJ with vinyl.
Yeah.
It's a totally different experience and something I feel like I'm really enjoying more. Yeah.
How does your involvement, give you a perspective on the opportunities and challenge women face in vinyl and DJing?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think that the reason why they even have women in vinyl is because the music industry, number one, as a whole, is harder to break into as a woman, and especially a woman that is Black.
Hmm.
So creating these spaces for women to thrive and get mentorship and access to careers within the music industry, specifically vinyl, because there's not many people out there who say, "Oh yeah, I'm in the vinyl industry," and
Hmm.
to have people who are there to help guide you and figure out what you want to do, that is really an awesome opportunity. But I think it shows me also that we've got to work 10 times harder. Women
Absolutely.
who are DJs, women who are in the music scene, period.
What insights have you gained from Women in Vinyl that influenced your approach, music personally and professionally?
I would say insights, definitely just being the best at your craft.
Hmm.
Um, and also really just never giving up and also practicing, like making
Hmm.
sure that you're keeping yourself sharp. Even with like my vinyl pop-ups that I do, I try to make sure that I'm, fully stocked on inventory, that I'm making sure that everything is right, that I have everything ready for whenever I do go pop up. So just making sure that I have all my ducks in a row and then also planning ahead for the future.
Moving into vinyl, well, it's not still on vinyl. What inspired you to create your mobile vinyl shop?
So I was broke. Let's let's start there. But no, I was in college, and so like I said earlier, I was at the radio station, and I got this idea, and I was like really thinking because my dorm room when I was at PV, right?
Hmm.
Had like vinyls all on the wall. I had vinyls in crates. I had like little cassette tapes. I mean, I wouldn't show. I have like cassette tapes that I would just like keep around. And also like I had a box TV. I had a box TV and I was watching VHS tapes in my room. And so when people would come in my room, they were like, yo, what's going on? Like, did we just teleport back into the 90s or the 80s? Like, and I think that people really started to be like, okay, this is really dope. Like people started to ask me like, where can I get a vinyl at? Where can I get a tape at? Where can I get a CD? And I would tell them, oh, this is where you can go. But
Hmm.
I'm like, wait a minute. I'm finding a gap in the culture. And that's where I kind of inserted myself. And I was like, it would
Nice.
be awesome to give the opportunity to the younger generation to have access to physical media. And so that's how it began. And it was mobile because of course at the time I was did not have any money. Um and also mobile because I could just pick up my stuff and go wherever
Right.
he was having an event. If I had a physical storefront at that time, people would have to come to me.
Hmm.
I think that it was easier at that time. And even now, I could just go pop up wherever somebody, wants me to be at.
How does vinyl allow people to experience music differently from streaming or digital formats?
This is another great question because I tell people all the time, this is number one people question people ask me. They'll say, "Oh, well, why do you even listen to vinyl?" I actually had a DJ tell me, "Why do people DJ with vinyl? It's too much work." But the experience is different because number one, when I say for listening, I always tell people you're not owning your music. They took away ownership from us, and we're not even thinking twice about it because of the convenience.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say Spotify and Apple Music is convenient, but the experience of going to the store, looking for the music that you want, finding it, purchasing it, taking it home, opening it up, looking at the cover art
Mm-hmm.
on the vinyl, that's an experience that's taken away from us. And so when you have your music online. So I don't know if you remember that Aaliyah's music wasn't on
Mm-hmm.
streaming for the longest time. Yeah.
Forever, yeah.
Yeah. But the people who had the CD and the tapes and
Had
the
all
record,
along.
yeah, they didn't have that issue. So I think that's the number one thing I try to encourage people to understand and be open to. And then second, DJing vinyl, the experience is so like it's a real relationship with music. I say if you're
Mm-hmm.
DJing vinyl, you have to really get your hands dirty. It's not there's no sync button. There's no, computer telling you the BPM. You have to do everything by ear. You have to do everything by ear. You have to mark everything on the vinyl, where the
Uh-huh.
song starts. This is where the next one's gonna start. It's just a totally different experience that makes you really love music more.
When it comes to your vinyl selection, how do you like choose what um, goes into your inventory?
Hmm. I choose what goes into my inventory. You're saying for the shop?
Mm-hmm.
So for the shop, I don't try to base it on my taste because it's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
I try to have a little bit of everything: rap, jazz, R&B, reggae, classical music. I try to have a little bit of everything. But I think the reason why I opened my store was for us.
Mm-hmm.
It was for African Americans because you see a lot of you know white owned record stores, but there's not a lot of black record
Mm-hmm.
stores. Somebody could go buy some ACDC, which is getting reprinted, but they're not really reprinting Anita Baker or, Midnight Star. So I thought that it was important to have things that specifically African Americans are going to want to purchase. So
So,
that's how I choose my inventory.
so when it comes to customers being drawn to 70s, 80s, and 90s records, what does that say about the music's impact?
I think it says a lot about the music's impact because it's actually that's a great point that you brought up. Like I actually get amazed. I think that's the most fun part about doing pop-ups because you get to
Mm-hmm.
see what somebody listens to. You never supposed to judge a book by its cover because somebody will walk up and you'll have in your mind what you think they're listening to or what they're
Mm-hmm.
shopping for, and they'll go home with something totally different. I've had people who were at PV, college students, and they're asking me, "Oh, do you have Lenny Williams?" I'm like, "You're looking for Lenny Williams and you're 21." But that says so much about music's impact and
Mm-hmm.
artist legacy and also the music that their parents and grandparents are
Right.
leaving behind with them.
I didn't even think to ask, how did you come up with the name Third Coast Vinyl?
Another great question. So a lot of people don't know. I know you from the north, right? You
Mm-hmm.
from the north. Yeah. So let me explain to you. So Third Coast is basically we're on the third coast here in Texas. Like we're on the Gulf Coast. And so there's an artist named Fat Pat. He's a Houston rapper from the South Side. And he has a song called Third Coast. And so when I was in high school, I used to listen to that song all the time. And so he's a rapper and he says we're third coast born, that means we're Texas raised, basically. So that's where
I
I
like
got
that.
yeah, so that's where I got the name Third Coast from. That was my radio name. I was Third Coast Candy in college. And then when I started my business, I was like, okay, Third Coast Vinyl. Coast, West Coast, and then we on the third coast here in Texas.
Okay, I'm gonna have to listen to that because I'm starting to get more into other regions. Because when
Hmm.
I like decided to format the platform, I didn't want to do just East Coast. So you just taught me something different. What challenges have you faced, as a founder and a music curator?
Ooh, I've faced a lot of challenges. I think, especially being a female, you have to work 10 times harder, you know.
Mhm, absolutely.
People will try to, um, you know, downplay you in a sense, you know, and also I've had challenges within myself, um, and also comparing myself to others
Hmm.
because what I'm doing is so different. And it's like, okay, I'm selling vinyl, I'm trying to DJ vinyl, but nobody my age is really doing it. I'm only 23.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like hard to stay encouraged sometimes, but then I have to remind myself, I have to, speak life into myself and say, no, God has put this, and He's planted a seed in you, and
Right.
this is for you to share with the world. So
You just made a good point, as curators who, I guess, like their platforms with like nostalgia, people look at us like, we're not listening to that. And like with today's music, how does preserving music and culture look like in today's world?
in
Trying to.
today's world, it's relevant. I really think that's another great point because people try to say, "Oh, we're not listening to that." You are,
Hmm.
though, because 90% of the time you're listening to old music because it's a sample or a beat
Yep.
that they recycled into a new song. And so I try to bring that point up a lot when people they'll ask me, "Oh, why are you listening to that? Why are you?" So you're basically listening to stuff that's not original. And I think that older music will forever stay relevant
Absolutely.
because artists are taking pages out of, older artists' books and applying it to today's artistry because they want the music to sound like it did back in the day, believe it or not. Like,
Hmm.
so
What do you hope younger generations take away from, classic music or HBCU traditions or even vinyl culture?
I think that they should take away, or I hope that they're taking away that music is timeless,
Hmm.
um, but ownership is the key.
I
Um,
love that.
Make sure that you're owning your music and that you have copies of the music that you want to listen to. I always say this. What if one day the internet shut down or something?
Exactly.
Spotify
Exactly.
go down, Apple Music just stopped working. Y'all are gonna be in shambles because
Hmm.
I do not have anything to listen to music on. And that's another thing. People be like, "Oh, I don't have a record player. I don't have a CD player. I don't have a tape player." Invest in it.
Hmm.
Spent $100 on them AirPods in your ear
Yep.
and probably $600 on that phone in your hand. You can go buy something, that's physical that you can actually touch and interact with.
I seen a video on TikTok, even with, I know you were saying you was watching, I forgot you mentioned earlier you was watching VHS tapes,
So
even physical media. I've seen people getting DVDs, and because I think one person had said that on their Netflix account, they had one movie up there. The next month, they went to go look at that, it was gone. And
yeah.
it was like, that's what physical media is important because you can always hold on to it. Well, if your life was a 90s sitcom, style sitcom, what would
Mm.
the title and the theme song represent?
What would the title and theme song represent? It would definitely represent being from the South, being
Hmm.
from the South, and also just like being an around the way girl. I feel like that's kind of like my vibe.
And then lastly, what does legacy mean to you as a music lover, HBCU graduate, entrepreneur, and advocate?
Legacy. Legacy to me is definitely like what we're leaving for the people who come behind us, and also kind of like ties in with wealth. Like, you know, I want to leave something behind that people will be able to use and cherish for generations to come. And for me, I think that's music. You know,
Absolutely.
music is my wealth, and I think that I should share it with everyone. So that's what my legacy looks like because it's timeless, like I said earlier. It's gonna
Absolutely.
like,
All right, Candy, we're going to wrap that up. That's our segment. I appreciate you. Can you know before we started, you had a an event coming up.
yes, it's on mental health. So I'm gonna go ahead and shout out my Instagram. If you're not following Third Coast Vinyl. Okay, go ahead and follow. It's at Third Coast Vinyl, 3RD Coast Vinyl on Instagram. Make sure you follow and also hit me up for any of your vinyl and music needs. And also, we'll be doing an event on March 4th with Brit with Moonspace, and it's all about music and mental health. So if you're in the Houston area or in Texas, make sure you come travel, come visit us. We'll be there popped up selling vinyl, CDs, tapes, and also get your mental health in order.
I'm also going to include those links at the bottom of this video as well. You guys make sure you hit my girl up. She got some good stuff. I got my Foxy Il
Yep.
Nana cassette from her. She got some good stuff. So y'all make sure y'all get with her. Until next time, nostalgia on the mic.